I, as a old-fashioned socialist, if you like, but understands how important it is to generate capital so you can afford your social obligations, your aged care, your schools, your hospitals, your healthcare. This is from a British understanding, not necessarily American understanding. It's a shame the Americans weren't more sort of genuine and sort of altruistic between themselves. Otherwise, and then therefore they're out of a better country than what they have. It may have been the greatest country in the world, but not going to make it great again anymore because of the massive, if you like, fake divisions that are being created in the population to divert their attention to how they're being robbed of a future, not because of climate change, because of economic failure by successive administrations. And this is all around the Western world. It's not just in America, and not just a criticism of America. It's a reason that the left itself, the thing called the left, liberals, whatever, are totally unfit for office. They're absolutely unfit. No matter how unfit anyone thinks Donald Trump is, the left are 10 times more unfit to be in office at the moment. And I do not support right or left. I support neither party because of what they're doing with the economic situation. What they're doing is flooding the country with created money or false money, and that creates a debt. And that money's then sucked into the oligarchies. That's all I've been doing since Greenspan began his expansionary, inflationary economic attitude. Man was a total failure. He wasn't a genius, he was a patsy put there by the oligarchies to do them a favour. We will not give the whole anthropological history of the fate of where America's ended up with this massive debt, but it's one I maybe need to explain that in another video. But the thing is, because of this, be stimulating the economy falsely by fabricating money, if you like. That money then is then sucked in by the oligarchies, and then they've sucked in all the debt, the massive billions of dollars they have, and created for themselves in their empire building within America, has created itself. You can see the debt within America itself. These people who owed the money also own the money. It's very clever, cyclical debt slave system they've created in America, and they're trying to create it, and it's in Australia and the rest of the world, because they made housing the sort of get rich quick capital investment idiom. Excuse me, and it's not. Eventually, if you keep inflating and doubling the price of houses every 7 years, obviously you're not going to keep your wages and your wages up with this doubling of this actual cost. So, if you like, if you want to see wealth as real wealth, it depends where you're from in the world, I suppose, what you see as real wealth. Real wealth is leisure. Is leisure, and real wealth is security when you get sick. Security when you're down and out a bit. That's real wealth. In America, they've got this very, very hard, bitter attitude towards humanity, where if you don't make it and you fall through the cracks, we're going to walk on you. And so it makes America look like outwardly an unfriendly place. Their friends are there, but it looks outwardly unfriendly place, and its politics is extremely adversarial. And one wonders if that adversarial nature of the politics is done there on purpose to distract the people from what's actually really going on between the two right and left, as it is in the UK, both working against the people and not for the people. What I'm saying is, or trying to say, is that the democracy itself no longer works for the people. It hasn't worked for the people for quite some time. It's worked for the wholly and solely, mostly for the corporations, because, as I said, they've been creating empire building, financial empire building within the West, that is to enslaving the people into massive, unsurmountable debt, and making it more and more difficult to fix things like roads, the basic things that makes a country actually real wealthy: roads, bridges, adequate hospitals, schools, affordable schools, comforting schools for children so they can be at schools. I'm not sure in America it's to the people at the top of America are so mean-spirited they rather children do without pencils at school, because you can see then they're not really interested in people having an education. When you don't look after the very basic principle of an advanced country, which is the education of your people, so that everyone has an opportunity, no matter where they're from, to advance themselves through learning. When that's not taken care of as a basic principle of a democracy, it's no longer a democracy, it's an oligarchy. America is an oligarchy, an empire building from within. It doesn't have a global empire. It thinks it's got the global muscle man, but it's got the empire is within. And it's because of these people running America, these empire builders from within America, who were using America as its own empire, it's amazingly rich out of. So a few people own 90% of the wealth, and they wonder why America and Australia, well, they've got this massive amount of national debt, because all the debt is accumulated to those people. They own the debt and all the money. So they own control of the government, and therefore both parts of government. But the left is not fit for voting for, because they have no ideas or policies that effect a good math economic outcome within a generation or two. Because all policy has a premise in it, and it's an equation anyone can understand. If it's a good math equation, it will accumulate a capital potential and consolidate the fiscal revenue for the benefit of the people. That's what governments should be run for, the benefit of the people. If it's a bad math policy, like it has been, I call it a bad math policy, then governments, they will accumulate a debt to the people and accumulate a great massive amount of wealth to the oligarchy and the banks. And that's exactly what they've done. And that equation now needs reversing. The only way to beat this is we don't want revolutions or all that sort of stuff. The left is into creating violence about one way or other. It's into stirring up young people who are violent about climate change and things they can't do, or border control, or things they can't do anything about. And that's not really of their concern at all. Their concern should be getting on with their life and enjoying themselves. But to turn this around, some party at some stage needs to come up with a thing, I call it a sliding scale system, so that the ubiquitous or common costs to people should be scaled according to income, and then corporations then share the burden within the country. They share the common social sort of means within the community, rather than the oligarchies use the community as a means to sort of sponge off, if you like, because they've become parasitical. In America, they've become parasitical and piratical against the people. That's what it seems to me. That's what the few small percentage of people are now without a conscience towards the rest of the people, which is not an healthy state of being to be. And that's what America now is all divided over nothing. It's not divided over the actual, what it should be having an argument. Both sides of politics in America and anywhere should be together against the oligarchy. But both sides of politics are together for the oligarchy against the people. So this is the problem that the people have. You keep voting for people who are not working for you but against you. And we do the same in Australia. You can vote for Labour Party or Liberal Party, and they're both working and worked amazingly together against the people, especially on climate change, and where they've bunged up the cost of energy so much now. People are suffering. Australia, the wealthiest country on earth, people are going poor now because of climate change policy, which has bunged up the cost of electricity, destroying manufacturing and employment. And these people say, we work for the people. No, they worked against the people. And if they didn't know what they were doing, that's incompetence. If they did know what they're doing, that is rather corrupted, isn't it? It's rather makes you wonder what they were thinking when they were doing it. If you can't see the effect of your policy 3 generations out, this is the important part. The effect of your policy 3 generations out, which is a good math policy, or determines good or bad math policy, then you shouldn't be making that policy. If your policy is not economic benefit, and I mean economic benefit is the most important benefit of all to society, not social benefit, all that. Economic benefit then secures the foundation for the people in the fiscal system of other people, and it secures it with less and less debt. By having policy that accumulates a good amongst for the people. So you can afford schools without getting inflating debt. So you can afford aged care and all those things that everyone has in common, no matter what status in life you have. Of course, the rich people who take themselves, look after themselves, but the majority of people have a difficulty with that. And this is where a rethink of democracy is required, so that it becomes an economic, the politics becomes more economically inclined rather than all these social issues about immigration and all these and sexuality and all the women's things and all that. All those issues are direct versions designed by the media, corporate media, and the corporate parties to distract the people from that being robbed of a future by these political organisations who pretend that they vote for me or vote for them, one or the other, when neither have said anything at all. You can make America great again, while at the same time inflating the massive amount of debt. So in the end, the amount of debt in America, in the households and in the country, will determine its future. Not what you do with fixing a few roads or stuff like that. Eventually that debt's going to come and come like a big snowball and crash down upon you. And that's inevitable. So there needs to be a rethink in capitalist economics, how it affects the social strata of society. If it's going to be humanistic, democracy is going to be humanistic in the future, and not just oligarchic and cruel and inhuman, which is the way it's going. In democracies should not be like that. But for some reason, democracies have turned into something that are no longer recognisable. From my perspective, I've followed democracy all of my life, and I'm born into it as far as democracy is in my blood. Being from Britain, I'm being nearly 70 here, but democracy is in my blood. So I have a feeling for democracy and a really reasonable understanding of history to know that, and recent history, to know that democracy is being used to make a few people extremely rich and to create a bunch of debt slaves within society for one way or the other, catering solely to the corporate sector, not the people. So they do not create. That's why in Brexit, for example, the people voted against being in the EU, but the oligarchy are against it, which is a few minority people, are dictating the parliament how to stall that, which just shows you democracy itself needs a makeover, and the only way to do that is vote out the major parties. Jesse Ventura said this, but he's quite correct. If you keep voting for the people or working against you, then you get what you deserve. Now you have to really be brave and come up with new ideas and new parties, what are more altruistic, or go back to what democracy really was, for the people and not the oligarchy. And if you can do that, and get the oligarchy on side, it's about everyone working together, not causing divisions in society over nothing, over what? Over fake issues, things you can't do much about, personal issues, will be made into social issues. That's the first in the chat. I'm going to do a series of talks on how to rethink the democratic process so it becomes more altruistic towards the people and starts accumulating a capital resource to consolidate the fiscal system using what I call, or Paul Keating called, a sliding scale system.